Hi guys, let's start our discussion by listening to the quotation from Thomas Jefferson. According to him, the study of the law is useful in a variety of points of view. It qualifies a man to be useful to himself, to his neighbors, and to the public. That's why we as future teachers or as a teacher, we really need to study this law para alam natin kung paano natin i-defend yung sarili natin in the future or even our co-teachers or yung mga kakilala natin, lalo na yung public. Kasi we know that in the Code of Ethics, how the community look at the teacher as a role model or even as a leader. Kaya we should be knowledgeable enough about it. So we'll talk about RA 4670, the Magna Carta for public school teachers. So we have here the meaning of the Magna Carta according to Merriam-Webster, that it's a document of constituting a fundamental guarantee of rights and privileges. So ano ba talaga tong Magna Carta? Para saan ba talaga siya or bakit siya nabuo? Yung Magna Carta talaga, it means the Great Charter based dun sa history. It even considered as the most important document sa history that is used to establish that the principle na everyone is subject to the law. Kahit na ikaw yung king or ikaw yung queen, you should follow yung rules and law, because it will guarantee the rights of every individual and the right to justice and the right to fair trial. Kaya once we study this discussion or yung topic natin for today, we will learn na kahit yung isang teacher ay merong complaint against sa kanya, there are still privileges or meron pa rin siyang mga karapatan na dapat nating i-consider, and we should know or study about it para sa future alam natin kung saan tayo lulugar at we know our responsibilities and also our rights. Here is our objective for this topic. At the end of the discussion, you'll be able to demonstrate awareness on the Magna Carta of public school teachers in basic education and your professional rights, opportunities, benefits, and responsibilities. Since you are a future teacher, I hope that studying this law will really motivate you or increase that passion deep inside of you sa teaching. Of policy coverage in Section 1, Declaration Policy, it is hereby declared to be the policy of this Act to promote and improve the social and economic status of public school teachers, their living and working conditions, their terms of employment, and career prospects in order that they may compare favorably with existing opportunities in other works of life, attract and retain in the teaching profession more people with the proper qualifications. It being recognized that advance in education depends on the qualifications and ability of the teaching staff, and what that education is an essential factor in the economic growth of the nation as a productive investment of vital importance. Kaya maganda na naprubahan tong batas na to para sa mga teachers, kasi we all know naman na gaano kahirap talaga maging teacher, and this policy would really promote to improve yung social and economic status ng ating mga teacher, na sila talaga who provided all the efforts, all their time para lang ma-develop yung mga students natin. So why do we need to value our teachers? Based on the just released na survey from Global Teacher Status Index, the countries that most respect their teachers are China and Malaysia. In both countries, teaching profession is seen as on a par with doctors. So yung tingin nila sa mga teachers were the same as sa mga doctors. Ganun talaga nila pinapahalagahan. And based on this survey, halos wala talaga dyan yung Philippines. But you know what guys, this type of rule or yung batas na to na Magna Carta is the best way na to consider na minamahal talaga ng ating bansa yung mga teachers kasi it's our way to protect ourselves and para mas may improve natin yung profession natin dito sa Pilipinas. In section 2, yung definition, this act shall be known as the Magna Carta for public school teachers and shall apply to all the public school teachers except those in the professorial staff of state colleges and universities. As used in this act, the term teacher shall mean all persons engaged in classroom teaching in any level of instruction on full-time basis, including na yung guidance counselors, yung mga school librarians, industrial arts, or vocational instructors, and all other persons performing supervisory or administrative functions in all schools, colleges, and universities operated by the government on or its political subdivisions, but shall not include school nurses, school physicians, school dentists, and other school employees. Tandaan natin na yung Magna Carta ay para lang talaga sa public school teachers. So, excluded dito or hindi included yung nasa private. For the recruitment and career, for the section 3, recruitment and qualification, the recruitment policy with respect to the selection and appointment of teachers shall be clearly defined by the Department of Education, provided, however, that effective upon the approval of this act, the following shall constitute the minimum educational qualifications for teachers and applicants. Kaya nga, diba, pag college, you have to choose talaga kung anong course ang gusto mong handle. If you are more into children, b.ed yung kukunin mo, or if you are into high school or kung gusto mo mature na yung mga estudyante mo, dun ka sa BSE na kukunin mo na course. Kasi may mga qualifications din bago ka makapagturo sa high school or sa elementary. For teachers sa kindergarten, elementary grades, bachelor's degree in elementary education, yun yung kukunin mong course. And for teachers of the secondary schools, bachelor's degree in education or its equivalent with a major and minor or a bachelor's degree in arts or science with at least 18 professional units in education. Kaya yung iba na graduate naman talaga ng ibang course like psychologist naman talaga or BS psychology, pero they could have a license or license for teacher, pwede silang makasali sa LET once na meron silang 18 na professional units sa education. Kaya yung iba nag-e-enroll talaga for this 18 units. Kaya pwede na sila makapagturo like senior high school or any bachelor's secondary schools. Okay? And for teachers of secondary, vocational, and 2 years technical courses, bachelor's degree in the field of specialization with at least 18 professional units in education. Kaya maganda talaga na meron tayong professional development for this type of courses kung gusto mong magturo, lalo na pag-graduate ka secondary vocational. And for teachers of courses in the collegiate level other than vocational master's degree with a specific area of specialization. Kaya pag sa college, mahalaga talaga or one of the requirements ay for you to have master's degree. But not all naman din kasi because we all know, di naman talaga lahat ay meron ng master's degree. But at least they have their units or meron din silang mga courses na tinitake, it could still be acceptable by some other universities or schools. Probationary period, when recruitment takes place after adequate training and professional preparation in any schools recognized by the government, no probationary period preceding regular appointment shall be imposed if the teacher possesses the appropriate civil service eligibility. Yung we all know na pag ang teachers naman ay well-trained na, at nabigyan na din sila ng professional preparation, no need for them to be provided probationary period. Ano ba yung ibig sabihin ng probationary period? Ito yung pagbibigay ng opportunity to assess yung new recruits on the job, yung tipong, alimbawa, bago ka lang na teacher. So, probationary period yung bibigyan ka pa lang ng observation for 3 months bago ka magiging regular. But for this, sa Magna Carta na to, maganda siya kasi pag alam naman na yung teachers ay well-trained na, no need for them to undergo ng probationary. They need to proceed dun sa regular appointment. Provided, however, that were due to the exigency of the service, it is necessary to employ as teacher a person who possesses the minimum educational qualifications herein above set forth but lacks the appropriate civil service eligibility. Such person shall be appointed on a provisional status and shall undergo a period of probation for not less than 1 year from and after the date of his provisional appointment. Maganda din to kasi kahit may kakulangan dun sa qualifications ay binibigyan pa rin ng chance yung teacher na mag-train tapos magkaroon din ng probationary period para makita talaga na qualified na yung teacher upon the given period for not less than 1 year. Section 5 will discuss dito yung tenure of office. Stability on employment and security of tenure shall be assured the teachers as provided under existing laws. And subject to the provision of Section 3 hereof, the teachers appointed on a provisional status for lack of necessary civil service eligibility shall be extended permanent appointment for the position he is holding after having rendered at least 10 years of continuous, efficient, and faithful service in such position. Ito yung kagandahan din talaga pag ikaw as a teacher ay you provided your service na rendered mo for too long, at least 10 years, tapos maganda yung process ng pagtrabaho mo, and then you are efficient and effective also, mabibigyan ka talaga ng stability and security dun sa trabaho mo. Kasi the same thing as a wine, diba? The longer or the aging of wine is potentially able to improve yung quality din. So, same sa teacher, the more na mas tatagal siya, the more na magiging mas maganda yung quality or yung effectivity niya as a teacher. In this section 6, the consent for transportation expenses. Except for costs and as herein otherwise provided, no teacher shall be transferred without his consent from one station to another, and wherein the exigencies of the service require the transfer of a teacher from one station to another. Such transfer may be effected by the school superintendent, who shall previously notify the teacher concerned to the transfer and the reason or reasons thereof. Kasi mahalaga to na meron talagang consent yung teacher, and for you to accept naman talaga yung gustong mangyari ng school superintendent, you have to hear a valid reason or dapat meron talagang explanation from them. And there's no problem about it naman if ever na ma-transfer ka as long as na-notify ka ng superintendent and you accepted or consent the transfer. If the teacher believes that there is no justification for the transfer, he may appeal his case to the Director of Public Schools or the Director of Vocational Education as the case may be. We studied dun sa Code of Ethics the process or yung tamang way, diba? Tamang process kung paano ka magrereklamo. In this way naman, talking about transfer, kung ikaw as a teacher ay hindi naman karapat-dapat ang reason kung bakit ka ita-transfer just because na halimbawa ay ayaw sa'yo ng superintendent sa'yo, so meron kang rights to appeal naman. And saan ka magsasabi or magsusumbong? Dapat dun sa director of the public school or yung director of vocational education. And pending his appeal and pending his appeal and the decision thereon, his transfer shall be held in abeyance, provided, however, that no transfer whatever shall be made 3 months before any local or national election. Kung malapit na talaga din yung election, bawal talaga na mangyayari tong pag-transfer na to ng isang teacher. Necessary transfer expenses of the teacher and his family shall be paid for by the government if his transfer is finally approved. Kasi syempre, di ba, yung teacher na nga yung mag-a-adjust, maganda yun na meron ding support from the government in terms of expenses. Section 7, the Code of Professional Conduct for Teachers. Within 6 months from the approval of this Act, the Secretary of Education shall formulate and prepare a Code of Professional Conduct for public school teachers, and a copy of the code shall be furnished each teacher, provided, however, that where there is not possible by reason of inadequate fiscal resources of the Department of Education, at least 3 copies of the same code shall be deposited with the office of the school principal or head teacher, where they may be accessible for use by the teachers. Now, what's the reason why do we need to have this type of copy? Hindi lang naman siguro dito sa mga batas na to or sa Code of Ethics, even sa mga students' handbook, diba? Kailangan talaga natin mag-keep sa school. Kasi, it's very important since it will serve as an outline, expectations, and values ng ating mga teachers. And they can also cover yung mga teachers tulad natin in case there's legal issues or may mga complaint, diba? Alam natin kung paano natin i-defend ang sarili natin and we will know our rights about it. And it's not just actually for us to remember yung mga codes na to, but also remember it through memorizing it. But we have to remember it by heart, yung sinasabi ko nga palagi sa inyo. Kasi in that way, it would be easier for us to know our rights, diba? And for Section 8, it safeguards in disciplinary procedure. Every teacher shall enjoy equitable safeguards at each stage of any disciplinary procedure and shall have, ito yung mga dapat na alam natin or dapat nating tandaan once na may complaint na mangyari. Here are the procedures. Dapat we are still be protected. The first one is the right to be informed in writing of the charges. Kaya ang pinakamahalaga talaga dito in terms of disciplinary procedure ay dapat merong letter or dapat merong kasulatan talaga dun sa charge na yon, not just through verbal. And the right to full access to the evidence in the case. Kasi, di ba, hindi naman pwedeng hindi ka pakitaan ng ebidensya, lalo na pag alam mo sa sarili mo na wala naman talaga at tinatakot ka lang. Kasi you could pwedeng i-blackmail yung isang teacher, diba? Na kunwari may ebidensya yung isa or yung nagko-complain tapos wala naman pala. Kaya maganda na meron siyang access sa evidences para at least at least siya na kung totoo man talaga o hindi. And the third one is the right to defend himself and to be defended by a representative of his choice and or by his organization, adequate time being given to the teacher for the preparation of his defense. Kaya dito malalaman natin na or pag-aaralan din natin mamaya ng isang teacher ay meron ding rights to join a specific organization kasi yung organization talaga is the one that will help us in terms of defending or supporting us in a certain complaint or isang case na pwedeng mangyari. And then the right to appeal to clearly designated authorities. So may right tayo na umapila kung hindi naman talaga totoo yung charge na ginawa. Tandaan natin tong apat na to. Once someone will complain us, dapat may right tayo to be informed, dapat may kasulatan talaga about the charges, tapos may full access ka sa evidences to check if it's really true or not. Tapos, we could ask or seek some help from our organizations na sinalihan natin, and then the right to appeal. And lastly, guys, no publicity shall be given to any disciplinary action being taken against a teacher during the pendency of his case. Napakamalaking issue na to, or most of the time hindi talaga siya sinusunod. Kaya dapat alam natin to para pwede tayong umapila na kung ang case pa naman ay pending pa, hindi pa naman na dumating sa korte or nasa stage pa siya ng processing ng complaint, there should be a no publicity. Dapat hindi binibigay yung pangalan natin or important information na pwedeng maka-apekto sa atin. Kasi nga, kung hindi pa naman tapos yung case, diba, and you provided any disciplinary action, like for example, like sa mga nangyayari na balita, diba, sinasabi na nasa pinag-aaralan pa lang yung kaso, tapos magsasabi sa balita na mawawalan ng lisensya or tatanggalan ng lisensya. You as a public figure, wala tayong right na sabihin yan. Kasi teachers are protected by this Section 8 na dapat i-safeguard yung mga teachers during disciplinary procedure. I have here an example, guys, kung saan may isang case, ang teacher was being complained, and for this type of process, guys, I could say na ginawa talaga nila yung dapat. So, let's find out what happened. So, this news or yung complaint na to I got this from the Philippine Star. 2012 pa siya, guys, but for me, maganda siya na example dun sa Section 8 na to in terms of following the proper procedure to safeguard yung security ng ating mga teachers. So this is from Cebu, Philippines, about an outstanding teacher of the Pacnaan National High School in Mandawi City is now in hot water after she was accused by her student of letting them eat paper after they did not make what she told them to do. So base dito sa balitang to, yung isang teacher nga daw ay pinakain daw niya ng papel yung mga estudyante niya. So what happened with this type of case? Maganda yung ginawa nila or yung naka-assign dito sa pag-aaral kung anong nangyari sa kaso kasi protected pa rin yung teacher. And this is something na nakakalungkot talaga na balita is once you become a teacher, even ito outstanding teacher, tapos yung teacher kasi na to ay high blood, so pumunta siya ng clinic. Tapos, before siya pumunta ng clinic ay binigyan niya na activities yung mga students na sasagutan. Tapos, pagbalik niya from the clinic, ay magulo yung mga estudyante and yung iba naman ay hindi gumawa ng kanilang activity. So, yung teacher, alam mo yun, sa pag nagkakaroon talaga ng emotional problem or lalo na yung sa may sakit, may high blood, diba? Alam mo yung mabilis uminit yung ulo mo. Ang ginawa daw niya ay he asked those students na kainin daw yung papel. Tapos, nung nireklamo na ng mga estudyante or yung mga parents nagreklamo na, nagkaroon daw ng effect dun sa mga bata kasi nagkaroon nga daw ng diarrhea after eating that paper. So, alam mo na yon, there are lots of things na pwedeng mangyari or pwedeng irarason para lang makasuhan yung isang teacher, ba? Diba? But then, this is what they did dito sa scenario na to. First, magandang nangyari ay yung principal directly check the situation on time, kung sa timeline na nangyari yung incident. Tapos, she even asked the teacher kung ano ba yung talagang nangyari. Mahalaga yon na you listen to the side of the teacher and also dun sa mga students. And after that, at nung na-realize nga nung principal na yung ginawa ng teacher is not a constructive type of disciplining the students or hindi naman talaga maganda, lalo na yung ibang students ay nagrereklamo ng corporal punishment or sinaktan nga daw yung mga bata, ang ginawa niya is he endorsed or she endorsed the incident to the DepEd Division Office for investigation. Kasi minsan hindi na hawak ng principal yan. Dapat it should be to the higher authority para mabigyan talaga ng patas na or patas na patakaran. And Benjamin yung Twengson, yung the administrative officer ng DepEd Division, ay nagkaroon or gumawa sila ng preliminary investigation that was conducted against the teacher. And then after nun, during that preliminary incident na yun or investigation ay nagsorry din yung teacher, but then yung mga parents talaga ay umayaw. Kaya they need to file the case against the teacher dun sa office of the ombudsman dun sa Visayas kasi sa Cebu to eh. And then that yung administrative na to, officer ng division office ay in-advise niya to wait for the case or the resolution of the case from the office of the ombudsman. And then, what I like the most for this case ay yung administrative officer na naghawak talaga ng kaso ay hindi niya pinayagan na ibigay yung pangalan ng teacher na yon kasi ongoing pa naman yung case. And imagine that one, guys, if you think of it, yung teacher na nireklamo was considered as A1 teacher, so matalino talaga at magaling, and has been awarded 4 times as most outstanding teacher dun sa Mandawi City. So imagine mo yun kung pag nagkaroon ng complaint and just for that certain incident na alam mong you're not really well, tapos biglang boom, sira yung 'di ba, future. So for this type of situation, at least naprotektahan pa rin yung teacher. And I know that upon studying different cases in your end sa activities natin, you will realize talaga that even teachers are not perfect and how important it is to observe utmost professionalism at all times, not just inside the classroom but also outside the classroom. Later on, I will provide another example of case naman wherein nagkaroon dito ng pagkakamali yung media. Kasi 'di ba most of the time yung media nagbibigay sila ng name talaga ng mga specific na tao, lalo na yung mga nirereklamo kasi mahalaga din yun talaga sa information nila. But we have to remember that we teachers have this right na protektahan yung names natin. Okay? Section 9, Administrative Charges. Administrative charges against a teacher shall be heard initially by a committee composed of the corresponding school superintendent of the division or a duly authorized representative who should at least have the rank of a division supervisor, or the teacher belongs as chairman or representative of the local, or in its absence, any existing provincial or national teachers organization and a supervisor at the division. The last two is be designated by the Director of Public Schools, and the committee shall submit its findings and recommendation to the Director of Public Schools within 30 days from the termination of the hearings, provided, however, that where the school superintendent is the complainant or an interested party, all the members of the committee shall be appointed by the Secretary of Education. Kaya the same dun sa nangyari kanina, there's a certain process na dapat nating sundin in terms of we have these charges or complaints. Talking about administrative charges, guys, ito yung isa sa mga cases na nangyari wherein nabalita din siya from Philippine Daily Inquirer wherein yung Pasig principal was in trouble over fee collection. Imagine that one na inuutusan niya yung mga teachers to collect funds or bayad para sa National Achievement Test Review. Tapos yung mga estudyante na hindi nakapagbayad ng 150 pesos ay hindi niya pinapasali sa review, which is against sa Code of Ethics din sa professional teachers and even dito sa Magna Carta din. And as yung principal was asked kung para saan yung fee na yun na 150, hindi din siya nagsalita. And yung mga teachers talaga ay nirereklamo na talaga dati pa yung teachers na ay yung principal na yun kasi para saan naman yung pera, 'di ba? 150 pesos kaya nga nag-public school, 'di ba, para wala daw babayaran. But it actually took them 2 years to speak up bago yung certain nireklamo talaga nila. Kasi because of fear, nahihirapan din sila kung paano yung tamang way. So here's the thing na ginawa nila if ever we have to file a case dun sa mga administrative charges, lalo na sa principal. Actually, guys, dalawang cases talaga yung binigay or ginawang complaint doon sa principal. First na yung collection of fees, tapos yung other, meron din certain na binayaran yung mga 9,000 na students for a stage play na hindi naman daw nangyari. And imagine that one, 9,000 students, nagbayad sila ng 200 pesos at hindi naman man lang ibinalik during the time na hindi natuloy yung stage play. So, they were asking for it in return pero walang naibigay. So, what happened? Yung mga teachers, 330 teachers ang nagreklamo or nag-file ng complaint. However, ito yung realidad na nangyari or pwedeng mangyari. Only more than half of the teachers signed the complaint because those qualified for promotion feared ng backlash and others simply had a debt of gratitude din dun sa principal. And it really happened then sometimes na maraming pwedeng reason for you to cancel yung complaint ng isang teacher, lalo na to sa principal kasi 'di ba meron talagang posisyon and the lower authorities ng mga teachers ay natatakot din talaga sa kung anong pwedeng mangyari and they are just being practical on their own. And what happened that time, kasi half lang naman yung pumirma, yung mga PTA din kasi, yung Parent Teachers Association, normally speak up whenever these issues happen. However, ang nangyari din, dun sa meeting din kasi, dun sa PTA, nag-agree sila na magkakaroon ng charges. However, dun naman sa PTA or the Parent Teachers Association, syempre they normally speak up lalo na sa ganito yung mga bayarin. However, based dun sa kwento naman ay yung mga PTA ay allowed this certain na bayarin lalo na dun sa stage play. Pinag-usapan naman nila at they agree on it. Kaya safe yung principal doon. And you know what? There's something that I wanted to correct din dito sa balitang to sa inquirer.net kasi binigay nila yung name ng nung principal kahit ongoing pa yung process. 'Di ba? It should not be allowed na ma-publicize yung name or information lalo na hindi pa tapos. Kasi part siya ng it's part to safeguard the disciplinary procedure para sa teacher. And then, pwede nga ireklamo ng teacher na to or ng principal na to yung inquirer.net kasi binigay nila yung pangalan kahit hindi pa tapos yung case. Next, for the section 10, no discrimination. There shall be no discrimination whatsoever in entrance to the teaching profession or during its exercise or in the termination of services based on other than professional consideration. Kaya ito din yung kagandahan kahit na-terminate na tayo sa services natin because of a certain charges or complaints, we have to we still have this right na dapat walang discrimination doon sa teaching. Even sa time na magtuturo ka pa lang, 'di ba? We have the right na humindi or we have the right to defend ourselves sa mga discrimination na nangyayari sa paligid. And then, married teachers. Whenever possible, the teacher authorities shall take all steps to enable married couples, both of whom are public school teachers, to be employed in the same locality. Kasi sabi nila before na hindi daw or imposible daw na pag ang mag-asawa ay magkasama sa isang school. But this one in this section sa Magna Carta, it's possible. The proper authorities shall take all steps to enable yung married couples to work in a public school. Okay? And academic freedom sa section 12. The teacher shall enjoy academic freedom in the discharge of their professional duties, particularly with regard to teaching and classroom methods. Kasi once you listen to the discussion or sa pag-aaralan nyo pa siguro about the different types of foundations of philosophy ng isang teacher, ikaw, diba, kung ikaw as a teacher, kung gusto mo talaga na madisiplina yung mga students mo, different method yung gagamitin mo, diba? Or kung gusto mo lang as a teacher to inspire the students and to teach them about the different values, ibang method din yun, diba? Kasi there's no such thing as the best method or strategy na kailangan sundin ng lahat ng teacher sa isang scenario. It depends on a certain case naman talaga. And academic freedom is something na karapat-dapat talaga nating sundin. Hindi tayo pwedeng sunod lang ng sunod ng kung ano yung sasabihin. Kasi you are the teacher. You are the one na mas closest dun sa students mo. And you know them about their learning capabilities, yung mga skills nila. So, hanggat maaari ay hindi tayo nadidiktahan ng iba na wala naman talagang knowledge about the students na hinahandle natin. Okay? And the hours of work and remuneration. In section 13, teaching hours, any teacher engaged in actual classroom instruction shall not be required to render more than 6 hours of actual classroom teaching a day, which shall be so scheduled as to give him time for the preparation and correction of exercises and other work incidental to his normal teaching duties. Maganda naman talaga din yung type ng batas na to kasi it's not just for the good of the teacher but also in providing a quality education. Kasi pag sobrang haba ng oras na ginugugol ng isang teacher sa actual classroom teaching a day, paano na yung preparation niya, 'di ba? Hindi naman pwedeng lagi na lang ay inuuwi yung trabaho sa bahay. Kaya dito, it should be 6 hours yung hours of work. And if ever na kailangang mag-render more than 6 hours but not exceeding 8 hours of actual classroom teaching a day upon payment of additional compensation at the same rate as this regular remuneration plus at least 25% of his basic pay. Kasi effort na yun ng teacher instead of gamitin niya yung time niya sa pagpapahinga ay gagamitin pa niya to create more preparation sa subjects na ituturo pa niya, 'di ba? And then for section 14, additional compensation notwithstanding any provision of existing law to the contrary, co-curricular and out of the school activities and any other activities outside of what is defined as normal duties of any teacher shall be paid an additional compensation of at least 25% of his regular remuneration after the teacher has completed at least 6 hours of actual classroom teaching a day. Kasi dagdag din yun sa trabaho ng teacher. We all know naman talaga na maraming kailangan gawin, not just the paperwork, but also considering yung behaviors of the students at kung ano yung mastery mo pa sa subject matter na kailangan mong gawin. And in case of other teachers or school officials not engaged in actual classroom instruction, any work performed in excess of 8 hours a day shall be paid an additional compensation of at least 25% of their regular remuneration. And the agencies utilizing the services of teacher shall pay the additional compensation required under this section. Education authorities shall refuse to allow the rendition of services of teachers for other government agencies without the assurance that the teacher shall be paid the remuneration provided for under this section. Kaya hindi sa lahat ng pagkakataon yung teachers ay bibigyan mo ng activities or trabaho. May karapatan din talaga silang magreklamo kasi it's included dito sa Magna Carta for public school teachers na pag sumobra nga naman sa ng 6 hours, dapat meron talaga silang compensation and you can't blame them kung gusto pa nilang taasan or dapat nagkakaroon ng additional na bayad. Kasi, di naman kasi yun kasali dun sa pinipirmahan nilang kontrata or dun sa mga responsibilities nila. And the criteria for salaries, the teacher's salary shall correspond to the following criteria. They shall compare favorably with those paid in other occupations requiring equivalent or similar qualification, training, and abilities. If you observe or learned about yung sa mga news, diba, nung tinaasan ng sahod yung mga teachers, what happened, guys? After yung tinaasan, nagkaroon din ng increase ng qualifications. So, kailangan ng CPD units yung teachers once na ma-expired yung lisensya nila. And it doesn't mean naman na pag tumaas yung sahod nila ay ganun din ang criteria or hindi nagbabago yun. Of course, nagbabago yun. Kaya kahit na tumaas yung sahod ng teachers, kung kailangan din naman ng CPD units, ay kailangan din nilang gumasto for it. And it's so expensive din talaga, talking of CPD units. And they shall be such as to ensure teachers a reasonable standard of life for themselves and their families. Kung gusto naman talaga nilang magandang buhay sa pamilya nila, hindi natin dapat yun pinipigilan. Or we as a teachers have the right to ensure naman yung life ng ating mga families. And they shall be properly graded so as to recognize the fact that certain positions require higher qualifications and greater responsibility than others, provided, however, that the general salary scale shall be such that the relation between the lowest and highest salaries paid in the profession will be of reasonable order. Narrowing of the salary scale shall be achieved by raising the lower end of the salary scales relative to the upper end. Kaya hindi dapat pinagkakaitan yung teacher ng isang promotion or in terms of grading the teacher kung alam naman talaga na magaling or effective yung teacher. Kasi it's a way din na para mas lumaki yung salary through promotion ng isang teacher. And then section 16, the salary scale. Salary scales of teachers shall provide for a gradual progression from a minimum to a maximum salary by means of regular increments granted automatically after 3 years ay nagkakaroon talaga ng increased yung sahod, hindi lang siya static or yung regular lang. Dapat there should be an increase. And for section 17, By the way, nagkakaroon din talaga ng increase kasi alam naman natin yung cost of living ay tumataas din. And Section 17, the equality in salary scales of teachers whose salaries are appropriated by the city, municipal district, or provincial government shall not be less than those provided for teachers of the national government. Kasi we are both, or yung teachers naman are also working in the government. Imagine nga dun sa study na binigay ko kanina, di ba? Yung China tsaka Malaysia, they even considered yung mga teachers like doctors, they respected them. Kaya matataas din yung sahod nila. Like Switzerland, sila talaga yung malaki din yung offer sa mga teachers. Mas malaki pa dun sa ibang professions. And for Section 18, the cost of living allowance, teacher salaries shall at the very least keep pace with the rise in the cost of living by the payment of the cost of living allowance shall automatically follow changes in the cost of living index. Kaya yung sinabi ko kanina, yung teachers talaga ay dapat napopromote or nai-increase talaga yung sahod nila kasi hindi naman change is constant, lalo na yung sa cost of living, tumataas yung presyo ng mga bilihin. And it should be work with the Secretary of Education, tapos dun sa national government, lalo na dun sa approval ng President of the Philippines. So, hindi lang tayo basta-basta din na porket na-request natin ay agad-agad na pagbibigyan. Of course, dumadaan din siya sa tamang process, lalo na nakikino-consider din yung other government employees, not just the teachers. And special hardship allowances in areas in which teachers are exposed to hardship such as difficulty in commuting to the place of work or other hazards peculiar to the place of employment as determined by the Secretary of Education, they shall be compensated special hardships allowances equivalent to at least 25% of their monthly salary. Kaya kahit nasa malalayong lugar sila or na-assign ka sa mahirap or liblib na lugar, there should be an additional compensation for you for that hardship that you are doing. And minsan naman dito, nagkakaroon talaga ng awards din, lalo na pag may hardship na ginawa yung isang teacher. And for Section 20, the salaries to be paid in legal tender, the salaries of teachers shall be paid in legal tender of the Philippines or its equivalent in checks or treasury warrants, provided, however, that such yung cheque or treasury warrant shall be cashable in any national, provincial, city, or municipal treasurer's office. Okay? Talking about deductions prohibited, dito sa Section 21, no person shall make any deduction whatsoever from the salaries of teachers except under specific authority of law authorizing such deduction, provided, however, that upon written authority executed by the teacher concerned, lawful dues and fees owing to the Philippine Public School Teacher Associations and premiums properly due on insurance policies shall be considered deductible. Lalo na yung mga GSIS or kung may loan ka naman, pwede mo naman i-process yun na i-deduct as long as you have consent to it. Bawal na magkakaroon ng deduction na without your authorization. Okay? And then, pangit din naman kasi if there's someone na magde-deduct lang dun sa salary mo na without your consent, diba? I even had this experience before. Someone had this experience na yung tipong hinihintay mo na yung sahod mo and alam mo yun, na budget mo na yung kailangan mong gastusin. And then once you receive your salary, makikita mo din, deducted ka kasi meron ka daw utang kay ganito ganyan or meron tayong contribution for this certain activity para sa school, 'di ba? Pangit naman talaga 'yon. So it's better talaga na i-prohibit yung deduction na to without your authorization of the teacher. And health measures and injury benefits in Section 22, the medical examination and treatment. Compulsory medical examination shall be provided free of charge for all the teachers before they take up teaching and shall be repeated not less than once a year during the teacher's professional life. Kasi we all know naman na sakto lang din yung sahod ng teachers, and if the medical examination is expensive, mas maganda talaga yun na shoulder na siya ng government. In regions where there is scarcity of medical facilities, teachers may obtain elsewhere the necessary medical care with the right to be reimbursed for their traveling expenses by the government entity concerned in the first paragraph of this section. Talking about reimbursement, guys, or yung mga nagasto mo na pwede ibalik ng government, sobrang dami ding requirements niyan na dapat mong sagutan kasi syempre to make sure then na valid talaga or totoong nangyari na bago ka bibigyan ng budget. Kasi we know naman sa government, 'di ba, may processes talaga sa lahat ng bagay. And on Section 23, compensation for injuries, the teacher shall be protected against the consequences of employment injuries in accordance with existing laws. The effects of the physical and nervous strain on the teacher's health shall be recognized as a compensable occupational disease in accordance with existing laws. Talking about this compensation for injuries, I hope talaga na nowadays kasi 'di ba, in danger din talaga or nasa delikadong situation din yung mga teachers sa DepEd kasi they are distributing the modules, and what if 'di ba, if they will have that COVID-19 yung virus, wag naman sana. Alam mo yon, is there an meron bang assurance na tutulungan ng gobyerno yung mga teachers? So, meron naman siguro yung compensation or sana may additional din sa sahod nila in terms of having this type of pandemic na nalalagay din sa delikado yung buhay nila. And for the Section 24, the study leave, in addition to the leave privileges now enjoyed by teachers in the public schools, they shall be entitled to study leave not exceeding 1 school year after 7 years of service. After 7 years of service pa talaga yung study leave. Such leave shall be granted in accordance with the schedule set by the Department of Education. Kaya hindi ka lang din basta-bastang mapapagbigyan dito sa study leave na to without the schedule provided by Department of Education. Kasi hindi lang naman ikaw na teacher na gustong mag-study leave, meron ding iba din talaga. So, they have to choose kung sino man yung best na dapat pagbigyan dito sa study leave na to. Provided, however, that no teacher shall be allowed to accumulate more than 1 year study leave unless he needs an additional semester to finish his thesis for a graduate study in education or allied courses. Isang taon lang din talaga, provided further that no compensation shall be due the teacher after the first year of such leave. In all cases, the study leave period shall be counted for seniority and pension purposes. So, kahit papano, meron din silang nakukuha doon. And the compensation allowed for 1 year study leave as herein provided shall be subject to the condition that the teacher takes the regular study load and passes at least 75% of his courses, and study leave of more than 1 year may be permitted by the Secretary of Education but without compensation. So, yung isang taon lang talaga. If you wanted to extend, pwede naman as long as nagpapaalam and you have valid reasons, yun nga sinabi kanina, lalo na sa thesis, but without compensation na yan. And for Section 25, the indefinite leave and indefinite sick leave of absence shall be granted to teachers when the nature of the illness demands a long treatment that will exceed 1 year at the least. Yung nangyari kanina sa case ng isang teacher na nireklamo sa Cebu for asking or letting her students to eat yung papel, ginamit niya tong rights na to na nagkaroon siya ng indefinite sick leave kasi 'di ba before yun nangyari ay high blood talaga yung teacher or it means may sakit din talaga siya. So it is a good way din para kahit papaano ay makapag-relax din siya on what happened. And for the Section 26, the salary increase upon retirement, the public school teachers having fulfilled the age and service requirements of the applicable retirement law shall be given one range of salary raise upon retirement, which shall be the basis of the computation of the lump sum of the retirement pay and the monthly benefits thereafter. Kasi nga naman, pag retired na, ibig sabihin diba they did their jobs already and their responsibilities. Kaya if ever na pagtuturuin pa sila, there should be an increase in their salary. But you know what guys, based on the teachers that na nakilala ko or mga professors ko before, ang reason talaga nila kahit retired na sila ay gusto nilang magturo not because na mataas yung salary, kasi nagkakaroon ng salary increase, but it's more on their love of teaching tsaka passion of teaching. Imagine that one na tumanda na lang sila sa pagtuturo and they could not live without it. Yung alam mo yung kulang daw para sa kanila yung araw nila if they could not teach. Kaya they still teach kahit retired na sila, not for salary purposes but for their passion kasi napamahal na din talaga sila sa teaching. And we have the teachers organization. In section 27, we have the freedom to organize. So, pwede kang magpasimula ng organization. Public school teachers shall have the right to freely and without previous authorization both to establish and to join organization of their choosing, be it a local or national. No need for us to ask permission about this kasi may freedom tayo. We even have the freedom na gumawa ng sarili nating organization and we ask other teachers to join it. These are the common examples guys na sikat na mga teachers organization. We have the PACTE, the Philippine Association for Teachers and Educators. Meron ding PACE or the seminar workshops, trainings, and conferences. A good thing guys na maging part kayo ng isang organization ay nandun yung protection. You'll be protected. At sabi ko nga kanina, 'di ba, doon sa if ever na ma-complain kayo and then you are part of a certain organization, you can ask some help from them para i-defend ka or i-support ka. And that type of organization could be a best way for you to have a professional development. Kasi tingnan nyo, merong pa workshops, may trainings, conference, and may certain din yan sila, things na pwede mong ma-receive once you're part of the group. For Section 28, discrimination against teachers are prohibited. The rights established in the immediately preceding section shall be exercised without any interference or coercion. It shall be unlawful for any person to commit any act of discrimination against teachers which are calculated to make the employment of a teacher subject to the condition that he shall not join an organization or shall relinquish memberships in an organizations. I wanted to share this type of situation wherein mali talaga yung ginawa ng isang principal or ng isang supervisor nung that time na may nag-a-apply na teacher sa school nila. And then, because maliit lang yung teacher, tinanong siya ng question ng supervisor, Are you sure na kaya mong magturo ng mga estudyante sa liit mong yan? You know what, it's a no-no talaga na ginawa ng supervisor yon kasi it's a discrimination against a teacher na which is really prohibited yon. Bawal yon na bawal nilang gawin yon. So we have the rights na to protect ourselves from that specific discrimination. So wag tayong magpa-discriminate kahit sino man, lalo na tayo ay teacher. And to cause the dismissal of or otherwise prejudice a teacher by reason of his membership in an organization or because of participation in organization activities outside school hours or with the consent of the proper school authorities within school hours, to prevent him from carrying out the duties laid upon him by his position in the organization or to penalize him for an action undertaken in that capacity. Kasi once you are a teacher, the first priority talaga is teaching and the students. So we need to ask some consent from the proper authorities if lalo na pag yung isang meeting or ang isang activity ay within school hours. The National Teachers Organization dito sa Section 29, National Teachers Organization shall be consulted in the formulation of national educational policies and professional standards and in the formulation of national policies governing the social security of the teachers. So, pangit naman talaga kung ang sinalihan nating organization ay hindi naman nagpa-follow dun sa national policies, 'di ba? Because we know that teachers as we are, dapat sumusunod tayo ng policy. Nasa Code of Ethics yan na tayo dapat yung nangunguna sa pag-follow ng mga rules. And administration and enforcement in Section 30, that the Secretary of Education shall formulate and prepare necessary rules and regulations to implement the provision of these Act rules and regulation issued pursuant to this section shall take effect 30 days after publication in a newspaper of general circulation and by such other means as the Secretary of Education deems reasonably sufficient to give interested parties general notice of such issuance. In the Section 31, yung budget estimates, the Secretary of Education shall submit to Congress annually the necessary budgetary estimates to implement the provisions of the Act concerning the benefits herein granted to public school teachers under the employ of the national government. Kaya, di ba, sa napanood niyo yung balita, nagkakaroon talaga ng submission ng budget dun sa Congress annually for the proper distribution ng pera ng ating bansa. And the Section 32, the penal provision, a person who shall willfully interfere with, restrain, or coerce any teacher in the exercise of his rights guaranteed by this Act, or who shall any other manner commit any act to defeat any of the provisions of this Act shall, upon convictions, be punished by a fine of not less than 100 pesos nor more than 1,000 pesos, or by imprisonment in the discretion of the court. Ayan, meron din pala tayong penal provision sa ating mga teachers. Doon lalo na sa, if the offender is a public official, the court shall order his dismissal from the government services. Kasi 'di ba, you're part of the government, tapos yung teacher ka, 'di ba? Parang kasama ka doon eh. Kaya nga 'di ba pag yung mga pulis, pag binastos, grabe na yung ano niyan, pwedeng ikaso. The same lang din doon sa teachers. Teacher as we are, maganda yung batas na to kasi we know na meron din tayong mga rights na dapat protektahan din natin yung sarili natin. And for Section 33, repealing the clause, all acts or parts of acts, executive orders, and their implementing rules inconsistent with the provisions of this Act are hereby repealed, amended, or modified accordingly, and separability clause of any provision of this Act is declared invalid. The remainder of this Act or any provisions not effective thereby shall remain in force and in effect. And lastly, yung Section 35, this act shall take effect upon its approval.